Welcome to this presentation on Git and Bitbucket. So this is a non-technical introduction for people who are not from an engineering background. But first of all, we need to define what is a source control. A source control is a system managing the source code of an application. You can imagine the source code of an application being like a book. Each software engineer is like an editor, changing the source code of the application. But if you have teams of hundreds, if not thousands of developers, it can become very complex. So that's what a source control does. It handles the complexity that comes with managing a source code, which is maintained by many developers. So what is Git? Git was invented by Linus Torvalds. So Linus Torvalds is the inventor of Linux. You may have heard of it. It powers a good share of the internet. For instance, if you have an Android phone, then it's a Linux phone. If you are booking your flight to go to the Fiji Islands, then there is a good chance that you are connecting to a Linux machine. So who uses Git? Microsoft, for instance, uses Git, even though they have their own source control systems. The latest version of .NET, which is the main framework of Microsoft, is hosted on a Git repository. Google also uses Git for its own source code. And other big companies like Facebook, Netflix, or Twitter also use Git. In this presentation, I won't go into details of all the functionalities that Git offers, but there are two that need our attention especially. A branch and a merge. So a branch is, imagine when working on a new version of a book, a new publication to come. Let's say we have many editors working on that book, and maybe they don't want to work at the same time on the same book. So a branch is creating two versions of the same book, identical, and then each editor can work separately on each branch to, let's say, create new articles, new paragraphs. So it goes the same way in software development. Each developer can work on a feature on a separate branch, and so that leads to the next step, which is a merge. So when getting close to the release, all the feature branches are merged onto one, and that one branch is the one that is going to be released onto production. So that's what Git excels at, managing the life cycle and the branches and the merges of an application. But Git can be a little bit dry at times. As seen on this screen capture, it's a very simple command tool, and it's just a simple software of a few megabytes. Also, Git doesn't offer by default a central server, a central location to put all the code on, and that's what we're going to talk about Bitbucket. So Bitbucket is one of the servers that offers more functionalities than Git does by default. But there are others, like for instance, you may have heard of GitHub, which is a central place for open source projects. So that's projects that anybody can participate to. But the idea of Bitbucket, it's more for companies and corporations, and it gives tools to those companies and corporations to maintain their code. So the first popular feature of Bitbucket is called a pull request. So it gives kind of a place to discuss and comment code. So for instance, if I created a feature, I may require the help of somebody to review what I've done. It creates a space where we can discuss comments and improve a piece of code. And this is a functionality that Git doesn't have by default. Another popular feature of Bitbucket is its marketplace. So for instance, you could acquire a plugin to review automatically the code. Because developers tend to do over and over the same mistakes, it's possible to automate that process of code reviews and highlighting the possible security threats, the possible bugs or possible optimization that can be done to the code. Another plugin, for instance, that can be added to Bitbucket is the ability to give graphs on the activity of all the developers. So how many commits they did per day, or how many times they made a pull request in the last month. And the last functionality that is interesting in Bitbucket is its integration with Jira. So Bitbucket is an Atlassian product. Atlassian, which is based in Sydney, and Jira as well is an Atlassian product. And they make a good effort at making sure that their products are working well together. So when a Bitbucket account is connected to a Jira account, then there are bridges between the two. So for instance, within a Jira task, it is possible to see how many changes have been done for that task specifically, how many branches are used for that task specifically, and it's possible to see as well if the changes build successfully and if they have been deployed successfully. And conversely, so when in Bitbucket, you can also see and attach changes to a task in Jira. So you can see directly in Bitbucket what has to be done for the task. And it's possible to go to Jira directly through hyperlinks, which are automatically set up. So that's it. So that was the introduction of Git and Bitbucket in layman's terms. I hope that was helpful, and see you later.